Okay, welcome to the first A-Bomb Energy podcast. We're going to be doing it in video format and audio format. So if you're interested, you can find it on Spotify, iTunes, pretty much on every single podcasting platform that they have out there. We also have it on YouTube if you want to watch the video format and kind of get an idea of who I am. If this is your first time listening to any of my podcasts, my name is Brandon Grazier. I'm currently an active duty special operations medic, getting ready to process out of the military come next year. I'm also an entrepreneur. I have my own energy drink company that is that's developing right now. We should be in full production by the end of the year. I also have a small production company, and then I run my own production company with marketing online. So I have a couple of different business ventures. It's actually really rewarding, and it's one of the reasons why I decided to go ahead and get out of the military. I've been in the military for 14 years, and by the time I get out, I'll have 15 years total in. Some people keep asking me like, dude, why don't you just go ahead and finish out the next 5 years and then you can go ahead and get your retirement, your pension, get your health care and all that. And I get it. 100%. I have 5 and some change years in the reserves. That means I'd have to do practically 10 more years of active duty, and I'm just done at this point. It's been highly rewarding, and I've learned a lot about myself, what I'm capable of, and going through the Special Operations Medic course was probably, aside from the birth of my son, that's probably the best thing that I've ever done because it taught me more about myself than probably anything that I've ever experienced in my entire life, even deployments. And so, it taught me how to study. It taught me how my brain works and how I can pretty much force feed any type of knowledge into my brain, whether I like it or not, and retain it. So it's an incredible course, and I highly recommend if you're currently in the military and you want to join special operations. If you don't have any medical experience, just so you know, before I started that course, it's the same course that Special Forces, SARCs, Navy SEALs used to go through until they created their own. PJs used to go through it, but it's the same medical course that everyone goes through in the special operations community that actually wants to be like ATP certified and paramedic certified. But yeah, I went through that course with zero medical knowledge, and I don't want to say I smoked it, but I survived. I had one recycle, which was trauma 2. Most people have a trauma 2 recycle. If you're on video, you see me drinking an energy drink. Again, I'm not in full production yet on mine. But this podcast today, what I want to talk about is the idea of the car community. And what I mean by that is like the elitism that's within the car community. Something that I find whenever I post these videos on YouTube, where I'm talking about how Ford hates you, GM hates you, Chrysler hates you, the death of the sedan, and then we also have another video that you've probably already seen by now, and that is the Ford bailout money and the amount of money that they've received from the federal government, and which is essentially your tax dollars. And, because there's this whole idea out there that Ford has never received any taxpayer money, and it's like, dude, are you insane? Have you done any basic research? Like, I get initially people being confused, but time has progressed so far. I mean, so far has gone, so much time has passed that at this point there's almost no excuse if you're actually within the car community to not know this information at this point. And I get the layperson that doesn't know, or they only saw it, they experienced it, and then they listened to the Ford public relations team and their CEO at the time, Mr. Allen. Seems like a great guy. Nothing against him. He seems like a really genuine, nice guy. But the PR that they did during that time was incredible. So in those videos, I was getting a lot of pushback, a lot of hate by some of the elitists in there. Probably actually Ford was the most negative that we saw on the channel. General Motors fans actually piped in all the time and were saying stuff like, dude, I own a GM, I own a Silverado, I own this product, I own that product. And all of them were like, yeah, dude, you're totally spot on. Even people that owned like Chevy Cruzes and all that. Like I just read a comment before I started the podcast, and the guy was basically saying like, look, dude, I've had to replace the water pump, the timing, I think it was the timing belt or timing chain, I can't remember. I've had to replace the oil cooler housing, the water or the water pump housing, all these like water cooler housing, and all these like parts. He just was essentially, the point of it, he was listing a parts list for me, and I was sitting there reading it like, wow, dude, And then the crux of it was, he's like, yeah, I've only owned the car for 8 months. I'm like, whoa, dude, 8 months you've owned that car and you've put like a grand or two worth of work into it, if not more, you know, depending on the part cost at the time and if you're doing your own labor. But I mean, essentially, let's be generous and say you've put a grand of work into it. And like, not just like, oh, I've replaced the oil and oil filter, you know, I've had to change the, you know, like a an EGR valve or something like that, you know, they're just something small that's not really that big of a pain. No, you're replacing critical components of an engine. And so I've had a lot of these kind of people pipe into the video in the comments, which has been freaking awesome, by the way, because you're starting to see a lot of this elitism start to kind of die out with General Motors and Jeep. I mean, even me, I'm a Jeep guy. I wouldn't say I'm a Jeep elitist, but I've been in the Jeep community for probably about 10 years now. Been obsessed with Jeeps longer than that, researched Jeeps longer than that. But the thing is, you know, I've been involved in this community for so long, and with Jeep, I'm never one of those guys that sees someone that doesn't have a decked out Jeep or because I drive a stock Jeep. I have 2 stock Jeeps and one that's kind of decked out, but like I don't see people that don't have a decked out Jeep and go, why do you even own a Jeep if you're not going to modify it? I'm not one of those guys. I'm actually the complete opposite of those guys. If I see someone driving a stock Jeep, I'm generally like, okay, they know that they know their place. Or and I don't mean that in a bad way, because a Wrangler off-road, a stock Wrangler is one of the most capable vehicles that you can purchase out the door, you know, right out of the box. You don't have to do anything to it. It is one of the most off-road worthy vehicles and off-road capable vehicles from the factory. There's not a lot of brands that can say that. I mean, obviously, you know, things like a Toyota 4Runner and a Toyota Tacoma, you know, the Bronco out the door is a really good vehicle off-road, the new Bronco. The Blazer, don't even get me started. That's an absolute shame what GM did with the new Blazer. GM is probably one of the worst companies out there for redoing vehicles, but that's just what I'm seeing in the present right now. I'm sure in the past they've done other companies have done even more wild stuff, but in the present time right now, they seem to be one of the worst ones. But I mean, a Wrangler out the door is the most off-road worthy vehicle. And you get a lot of people in the Wrangler community, especially like the first-time Wrangler owners. I love them, but man, sometimes they have this idea in their head that because they bought a Rubicon Wrangler, they're 55 years old, and it's their first Wrangler they've owned, that like somehow they're better. And that's not how the Jeep community is. I've seen guys, so in special operations, you do this thing called non-standard tactical vehicle, NSTV. And for example, let me just kind of put this in context. In my deployments that I have, I should say, in training, I almost have never used a Humvee or a JLTV or an MRAP. I have used them, but in the grand scheme of things, 99% of the time, I am using a non-standard tactical vehicle, either like a Toyota Land Cruiser, 70 Series, Hilux. We use the freaking hell out of those. Last deployment I was on in Africa, we used a Land Cruiser, but then we had 70 Series and Hiluxes and a couple other different vehicles out there. But we use non-standard tactical vehicles. And what that means is we have to know how to use those vehicles off-road and on-road, whether it's offensive, defensive driving, or vehicle recovery, you know, all the things associated with off-roading. And, you know, we go to special courses where we learn how to, you know, basically roll a vehicle, like where a vehicle gets rolled and we learn how to recover it. And so you do a lot of really good work out there. And I've seen guys on trails and, you know, just all over the place where they're in a decked out vehicle and they still get stuck. But then I've seen the same trail where a decked out vehicle got stuck. And I've seen it where guys in stock vehicles that have no business being on that trail make it through that course. It's all about the driver. And a lot of people tend to think that, you know, just because they have lockers or big tires and wheels and all that, you know, don't even get me started on the wheels and tires whole debacle, but they think that that's going to compensate. Or I mean, and really it can compensate for lack of skill. And so instead of focusing on the basics and learning how to off-road properly, they just jump straight to the jugular and they go for, you know, the $10,000 package that they don't need and probably don't know how to use. Now, having said all that, I don't have a problem with people doing that. This is America, number one. You can do whatever the hell you want with your vehicle, and I don't have a problem with that. I think that's great. That's the benefit of living in this country and really in the free world. Do whatever you want with your vehicle, but there's this elitist mentality that's out there. And this channel, A-Bomb Energy, is a channel for people that can critically think, can use deductive reasoning skills, and can see what lies ahead. And I love that this community is pretty much like that. Everyone here, I wouldn't say is like-minded, but in the grand scheme of things, if we really take a helicopter view, we're all kind of in the same pocket, which is great because, there's people kind of scattered, close to the edge of the pocket, which is great because it brings in new ideas, different thought processes, which I love. But in the grand scheme of things, we all pretty much agree on the core concepts of the auto industry. One is, like government money is probably not the best thing to do when it comes to a crappy ran company. Anyways, so for example, like I drive a BMW. I love my BMW. I also have a Volkswagen Jetta. I love my Volkswagen Jetta. But I also have, 3 Jeeps and a Charger. So I have 3 sedans and 3 SUVs. I'd say SUVs in quotations, actually, because one's a 92 Cherokee. My Charger's bigger than that 92 Cherokee, so I'm just tossing that out there. And then another one is a 98 TJ. Rebuilt both of those. And then I have the 2018 JL, a 2009 Dodge Charger. Bought that car when I was in high school, kept it, paid it off. Still runs. It's in okay condition, so I'm just going to keep it, use it as a delivery vehicle, and potentially give it to my kid when he's older, if it's still around. Have a 2022 BMW M340i. Hands down, my favorite vehicle that I own. It is fast. It is nimble on its feet. Gets really good gas mileage, surprisingly. If I'm driving normal, I get like 30 plus miles to the gallon. So that's pretty good out of the B58 motor. It's a twin scroll turbo. It's not twin turbo, it's twin scroll, which I think it means it has 2 fans on the turbo. But a great engine, powerful. I don't know about the reliability yet. I haven't owned it long enough, but according to the research I've done, the B58 motor, which came out in the 340i BMW, man, I'll tell you what, that motor seems to be a really solid unit. It was co-built and passed the, this is what I'm told, at least from the research online, it was co-built and it passed the stress tests of Toyota. So if that's the case, then that thing has my money. But, Toyota is also starting to kind of slip now in the current time. And then I have the 2024 VW Jetta 6-speed manual. Great vehicle. Bought it as a delivery vehicle, and that's pretty much what its use is going to be. And when I say delivery vehicle, it's for my business, for delivering product. I'm doing my own self-distribution at this time, or plan on it at least. So, yeah, I get a lot of hate from people that, and I say a lot, I mean like maybe 10 comments out of how many have we had on the channel? Like 10,000. But I get these comments occasionally where people are like, how could you own a BMW? How could you possibly own that? And then generally I ask questions like, what vehicle do you recommend? And most of the time they say something like, I own a Toyota Corolla, or I own a Honda Civic or a Honda Accord. Now, there's nothing wrong with owning those vehicles. There's absolutely nothing wrong with owning those vehicles. First off, if you were to come up to me and say, hey, Brandon, vehicle sales are stopping forever. You have 2 choices for a vehicle. You can have your amazing 2022 BMW M340i, and that's what you can drive for the rest of your life. Or you can have this brand new, or shit, we could even say in 2022 Toyota Corolla 6-speed manual. I would say, you know what? I'm going to take the Toyota Corolla because if it's going to definitely outlast the BMW for the most part, I think. I would imagine. I would bet my money, and I bet most people would go with that case. But the point I'm talking about here is there's a lot of people out there in the industry that think everyone thinks like them. And whenever they get a point that's counter to their thought process, that they've never even remotely even thought like that, a mousetrap in their brain flips. And then I guess just to use the word, it triggers them. And they can't grasp the concept that people like BMWs or German vehicles, we'll just say German engineering, because of the way it drives, the interior, the quality that goes into the engineering behind it, and just the pride that's with those vehicles. People like those vehicles for those reasons. The luxury, we can even toss that in there. But they don't realize that people understand that when you buy a BMW or a Mercedes or an Audi or a VW, whatever, Porsche, they understand that there's going to be costly repairs in the future. It's like they think because, they have the Toyota Corolla or a Civic or whatever, I understand that a Toyota Corolla is not going to even be remotely close in repair costs. It's going to be, less than half, if not more. I get that. But it's very interesting because there's just that elitist mentality, and I can't subscribe to that mentality. That's just not how I roll. If somebody has a, freaking Chevy Sonic and they love their Chevy Sonic and they think it's the best vehicle ever made and they're happy with it, dude, that's awesome. That's awesome because the whole point of owning a vehicle is being happy with it and it doing the job for you. Business, there's a lot of people whenever I post, comments or I post in videos where I say that the purpose of a business is to solve your problem. The moment they stop solving your problem is the moment they're going to fail. And that is the whole point of a business. And sometimes I'll get feedback where they're like, oh, the point of a business isn't to solve your problem. It's to appease shareholders. Well, number one, let me ask you, do you own any business? Have you ever worked in any businesses before? Because every business that operates to appease a shareholder turns into a, corptocracy. They turn into this huge conglomerate where, they're eventually going to fail. And that's why you have the auto industry bailout of 2008. And I fear another auto industry bailout is coming. If you look at the track record, the sales records, and all these subsidies and tax funds that are rolling into these companies, they cannot exist without subsidies at this point because they have lost the idea that the point of a business is to solve your problem. The moment you stop solving the problem is the moment you fail. It's like when I talk to you guys in the comments, I put you guys above my business. Because YouTube technically is a business. You guys are technically customers, but I don't view you that way as customers. I view 99% of you guys as friends because you guys are incredible. You support the content, and that's just how it is. I'm trying to help solve your problem by giving you entertainment, education, and knowledge that you probably don't know about because a lot of people in the auto industry don't want to talk about these things. You see it all the time. And there's a reason for that, by the way, guys. Somebody who owns a car content channel, right? They're not going to want to say anything bad about GM, Ford, Chrysler, Jeep, any of these large major auto manufacturers. They don't want to say anything bad about them. Why? Well, they need those cars for their channel. They need to be, and I don't mean this in a bad way. Because a lot of channels like the Fast Lane Car, that's probably, in my opinion, the best car content channel out there. They give you, the real reviews for the most part. They do say bad things about manufacturers, but not at the level that, in my opinion, needs to be said, which is what I do. And I don't need Ford. I don't need GM. I don't need any of these companies to try to sponsor me or send me a vehicle. If they want to try to win me over and show me what they're doing now to improve their company, absolutely, I would be more than happy to talk to these companies. I'd be more than happy to look at their facilities, look at their business model, look at what they're doing to change things in the industry. I'd be more than happy to do that because I want them to succeed. That's the other thing, too, with the American Autos Failures series. I want American car companies to win. I desperately want them to win because, in my opinion, Made in America does matter. It's a very important thing for the country because it employs people in our country. The impetus behind creating that series was the fact that they're getting so much money from taxpayers, but yet they're not employing Americans at the level that they should be employing them. I think it's the grandson, what's his name? William Ford, Billy Ford. I can't remember what his first name is, but I watched a video of him not too long ago. It was about a 6-month-old video. And he's talking about how he says, we are the only company or one of the only companies who still build vehicles in the United States. Like what? The Ford F-150 and like the Mustang or something? Like, dude, the Ford Maverick, the electric GT or the electric Mustang, you've shipped so many cars outside the SUVs now, outside of the United States to be produced in Mexico. So you can't sit here and tell me that because you make one or two vehicles in the United States, and I don't know the exact number, but because you make some vehicles in the United States, but you're moving production to Mexico and Canada and Asia. I mean, GM is probably the worst, to be honest with you. They make their vehicles in China. They make their vehicles in Korea and Mexico. I mean, they've moved all their plants pretty much outside of the United States. There's a handful of GM plants that are still actually in operation in the United States. And those ones that are operational in the United States are having so much foreign influence come in there that it's like, dude, you can't sit here and claim these made in America statements and that you're some pro-America company whenever you're not really employing Americans at the level that you should be employing them. But on the flip side of that, I don't necessarily blame them, because look at what the UAW has done to a lot of these companies. You know, things like the UAW, at the time, I understand the creation. I understand the creation of them. But the byproduct from what these unions have done to the companies, the product, the quality, the pricing and all that, it has utterly destroyed the car industry. And it's continuing to destroy the automotive industry. And they don't see it. I don't understand where this sense of entitlement is coming from a lot of these people. I was talking to a commenter the other day, and, we were talking about the UAW. The UAW, I watched an interview from someone. It was I think it was like a CNN video or something, and they were interviewing a UAW worker during the protest. And this UAW worker was acting like they just got back from Fallujah circa 2006. Saw all their friends get killed in combat, and they're the last remaining survivor. And oh, by the way, they're a double amputee. I don't understand where this sense of entitlement is coming from with these people. I don't believe in worker abuse. Obviously, nobody does. This is the 21st century. But they act like they deserve everything. And I can't get behind that. I just can't get behind that. And they don't understand that these terms and conditions that they're putting out there are just, this has nothing to do with like politics or anything like that. This is just real. This is real life. And this is business. This is entrepreneurship. This is, part of being a CEO and, seeing how things are actually ran. Like, dude, this is not good what's happening in the auto industry. And I don't know. I don't know if there's a fix for this. I don't know if these companies, a lot of people in the comments say, well, Ford, GM, Chrysler, they just need to go bankrupt. And look, I totally understand that sentiment. I kind of agree. I think once subsidies stop, if they ever stop, they'll go bankrupt. UAW is bankrupting them. They're people in the auto industry are basically federal employees at this point. They get more. I can't say they get more, but they get a lot of entitlements. And I can't get behind that type of behavior. So it's just interesting. We have a lot of elitists in the community. And it's always going to be like that, by the way. No matter what industry you go to, there's always going to be elitists out there that think they know everything and they know what's best. That's not going to change. And I not even remotely trying to change it. But what I do ask of you guys is, if you are one of those people or you catch yourself doing that, take a zoom out, zoom out and look at the big picture here. If somebody owns a specific car and you own another car and you think that brand, whatever you own, is the best, but that other person is happy with it, what does it matter? Really? What does it matter? It doesn't. It's just the way it is. I get the jokes. That's fine. Got it. A friend of mine owns a Toyota Tacoma and he thinks it's the best thing on the planet, and I make fun of him. He makes fun of me. But in the end, we both know, like, hey, man, these are great vehicles. Like, yours is decked out to be super off-road worthy. Mine's not. And I could definitely go toe-to-toe with you on a trail, but, in the end, your Tacoma will probably beat my Wrangler because how much gear and equipment you have on it. So it's just one of those things. But anyways, that's the first podcast. Let me know what you guys think about it. It's going to get better, I promise. I have a lot of tools and research and development at my fingertips at this point, so it's only getting better. I just wanted to go ahead and get something out there for you guys because, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. I want to give you more content. A lot of you guys have been asking for more content than I can produce at this time, like the high quality content. That takes a long time. Each video takes about 3-ish weeks to edit, and that's working 8 to 12 hours a day on that video. So they take a lot of time, but I appreciate the love and support you guys are giving me. I hope these podcasts kind of give you an idea of like where my brain's at, and I'd love to hear where your guys' brain is at, and you guys can discuss below. Anyways, appreciate you guys watching. Hope you guys have a great day. Thanks. I'm out of here.